Harry Emerson Fosdick said, "It's so much easier to suggest solutions when you don't know too much about the problem." Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Christian Questions Talk Radio with your breakfast with Jonathan and Rick. The objective of our program is to discuss with you, our listeners, thought-provoking and meaningful topics based on the Bible. It's a call-in format. We are caller-friendly, and we look forward to hearing from you. And right now we want to hear from our friend Jonathan. Where are you, sir?
Rick, I'm in Florida, enjoying the warm weather.
Yes, you are. It's raining and cloudy here, just so you know.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
No, you're not. And so, Jonathan, you're calling in, and this is our second week of streaming live on the Internet.
That's right.
So we want to welcome those folks who are listening on the web, and reminding you that you can also call in at 860-442-6102, 442-6102. There is a slight delay, so you'll be jumping ahead in time, but we certainly would welcome your input. And Jonathan, what is our subject?
Well, Rick, our question is, did God ever advocate slavery? And our theme text is found in Colossians chapter 4, verse 1. Masters, treat your slaves justly and fairly, for you know that you also have a master in heaven.
And Jonathan, in the first hour, we have really tried to lay a lot of groundwork for servitude in the Old Testament. And what we found is that servitude did exist very, very obviously. And in the days of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, it was very much like you were taking people in almost to be workers in your household, and in a sense, members of your family. You gave them spiritual teaching and guidance. You treated them well. Then we move forward to... Go ahead.
They could also be heirs, remember?
Right. Yeah. So so someone could sell themselves to you if they had debt or situations that they needed to correct and needed money. Then we move forward to servitude under the Jewish law. And what we found is that there were positions in the law given to create equity, especially for a Hebrew who would be taking another Hebrew to be their servant. They were to be released after 6 years of service or during a Jubilee year, whichever came first. When you released them, they were to be given liberally out of your goods because they served you well. And God said very specifically, do not treat them with cruelty. Okay? So that's in a very, very short time. What it took us an hour to say in the first hour. Now we're looking at, again, this same question. How did slavery work in biblical times, and did God ever advocate it? Let's look at non-Hebrew slaves. And let's read that first little paragraph from the McClintock and Strong's Encyclopedia to help us set the context on that.
The majority of non-Hebrew slaves were war captives, either the Canaanites who had survived the general extermination of their race under Joshua, or such as were conquered from other surrounding nations. Besides these, many were obtained by purchase from foreign slave dealers, and others may have been resident foreigners who were reduced to this state either by poverty or crime.
Okay, so now let's take a look at the rules for the treatment of slaves under the Hebrew law. Now this is for slaves or servants that are not of Hebrew descent, but from surrounding tribes or nations or countries or whatever.
Let's read, Rick, from Leviticus chapter 25, verses 44 through 46. As for the male and female slaves whom you may have, it is from the nations around you that you may acquire male and female slaves. You may also acquire them from among the aliens residing with you, and from their families that are with you, who have been born in your land, and they may be your property. You may keep them as a possession for your children after you, for them to inherit as property. These you may treat as slaves, but as for your fellow Israelites, no one shall rule over the other with harshness.
Okay, so here we have a difference. Okay, with Hebrew slaves, it was very, very different, and there was a period of time for which someone could serve. Here, it's saying there is no necessary release of this individual. The majority of non-Hebrew slaves were war captives. Okay, so that's where the majority of them came from. And again, in those days, when you conquered a land, you either killed them or put them to work. Those who were left over. So you have this circumstance, and now you say, okay, this is different, and it is very different, because you can have that perpetual, quote, ownership, unquote. Okay, so where is the humanitarian view on this? Well, let's take a look a little further and establish how the law treated these individuals who were, yes, in fact, they were to be part of your household, and you had the right to keep them, generation to generation, so to speak.
Okay, all right, Rick,
go ahead.
Leviticus 24,
yes,
17 and 22. Anyone who kills a human being shall be put to death. You shall have one law for the alien and one for the citizen, for I am the Lord your God.
This is important because the first thing we notice here, it says anyone who kills another man, a human being, will be put to death. So it doesn't say anyone who kills a free man will be put to death. It doesn't say anyone who kills a landowner will be put to death. It says anyone who kills a human being will be put to death. And it says you shall have one law for the alien and for the citizen. So, Jonathan, first of all, the same penalty applies for the killing of someone who would be in this position of servitude versus someone who is not.
That's right.
Okay?
And if we continue on in Exodus, brings out another valuable point. In Exodus 21, verses 26 through 27, when a slave owner strikes the eye of a male or female slave, destroying it, the owner shall let the slave go, a free person, to compensate for the eye. Or if the owner knocks out a tooth of a male or female slave, the slave shall be let go, a free person, to compensate for the tooth.
All right. Now, you're right. That is a very, very important addition to the context of, okay, so if you have these individuals who were, by reason of conquering, to be workers in your household, then how do you treat them? Well, in the law, it says, if you hurt someone's eye, if you damage their eye, and they're your slave, they're to be set free, because that's compensation. Their freedom is compensation for the damaged eye. If you knock their tooth out, they're set free. So what does that tell you? It tells you that physical abuse was not to be tolerated. So again, you have this servitude, absolutely positively. Yes, it was there. There's no denying it. But it is not in the same context of the beatings and and all of the things that we might envision along these lines. Let's go to the next segment here. The slave who was considered by a conscientious master is entitled to justice and honorable treatment.
Let's read from Job, chapter 31, verses 13 through 15. If I have rejected the cause of my male or female slaves when they brought a complaint against me, what then shall I do when God rises up, when he makes inquiry? What shall I answer him? Did not he who made me in the womb make them, and did not one fashion us in the womb?
And also Proverbs 30:10.